I hope everybody's ready. Plug and Play Brokerage, the future of real estate. Let me welcome our beloved Clelia Peters and Guy Gal.
Hi, everyone. It is my pleasure to be here with Guy Gal, who is a dear friend of mine and someone who I'm looking forward to talking to about what's next in the real estate industry. Guy, maybe you can start off by talking to us a little bit about your own story, what brought you into the residential real estate industry, and what motivation you had to start Side.
Yeah, so I am a real estate outsider. I did not come from the industry. I was a technologist before, and I was working on creating and building technology products. And maybe 4 years ago, I became really interested in what I was seeing in real estate, which was that you have today about 1.5 million agents nationwide that facilitate 5.5 million transactions each year. Now, only about 100,000 of those 1.5 million are very experienced in high volume. And that also means they're very entrepreneurial. And what that also means is that they're underserved by the existing brokerages, because existing brokerages are designed for the average agent, an agent that does maybe 1 to 6 deals a year. And it was obvious to us that the industry needed a brokerage platform that was specifically designed for top producing agents and teams. So a team that facilitates 40 transactions a year has a very different set of needs than an agent who does 4 deals a year. And every other brokerage is designed for that agent doing 4 deals. That's the kind of average sort of thing. So that's why we founded the company, to support the very best agents in a way that existing brokerages cannot, because they have to design for and serve into the average agent, not the exceptional agents. So that's why it is that I felt really compelled, because personally, I've been an entrepreneur all my life. I know how hard it is to wake up in the morning and connect invisible dots, and it takes a lot of heroics and work and effort to do that. And I saw so many agents doing that without any support whatsoever. And in fact, I saw them having to deal with lots of friction because the existing brokerages did not want them to become more important or higher producing. It wasn't in their best interest. So that really compelled me to create something different alongside my co-founders, Ed and Hillary. And now we're a very large team doing this at a much larger scale 3.5 years later.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about what that friction that you think top teams encounter is and how Side sort of works around it.
Yeah. So, if you're an agent at an existing brokerage, they really want to fit you into their mold so that you're putting their brand first and it's specific to their colors and their aesthetic. They also don't want you to produce too much, because let's say you're an agent doing $40 million a year in home sale volume. If you become an agent that's now doing $80 million a year in home sale volume, you're going to pay that brokerage the same amount of money at 40 million in volume as you would at 80 million, because you're going to negotiate a much better split for yourself. And that means that the brokerage now has to do, twice the work for the same money. So why would they want that? They don't want that. It's not what they encourage from agents. A brokerage would rather have...
I'm going to push back a tiny bit there just quickly and say, I think it's more complex than that. I think for a lot of brokerages, they want those top agents because, it's almost like a sports team where you're paying your top talent, like, truly top dollar. I think the point that you're making, though, that there's an 80-20, there's 20% of agents produce 80% of the value in the industry. And those people often have negotiated agreements, which means that they don't bring much value to their own brokerage, is a really important one.
Yeah, there's a lot of nuance here. So obviously we're going to try to simplify given that we have a short amount of time. But the basic idea here is that a top agent, a top producing team, high volume teams, that is not something that brokerages ever contemplated 10, 15 years ago. Those are recent phenomena, right? Those are things that are happening because of the internet and an agent's ability to go direct to consumer and not be intermediated by a brokerage office. So it breaks the mold. And we figured that you had to create a new mold, and that mold had to be in the shape of those agents, not something that forced, a round peg or a square peg into a round hole. So lots of different things that influence that, but that's the general idea.
So, I mean, I think a lot of people in the audience are going to be saying, this sounds a lot like Compass and the pitch that Compass has made to the agent community. What's different about Side?
A lot of things. Well, first and foremost, average agent at Compass, depending on the month, is doing 5 to 7 transactions a year. Average agent that we work with does 40 transactions a year. So that's not even in the same ballpark. It's a different sport that's being played. The second thing is that we're a brokerage platform. We're not a brokerage brand. So Side is not a consumer-facing company. We don't care about developing Side as a consumer-facing brand. That's a very important thing for companies like Compass or Coldwell Banker or Keller Williams. I would say Compass is more like Coldwell Banker than it is like Side. Side today, if you look behind me, powers hundreds of boutique brands that we created from scratch alongside these high volume agents and teams to specifically service the nuanced needs of their communities and their markets. So we're a silent partner. We are the brokerage of record. We do all of that work, but we're behind the scenes, and it's not one big brand that we try to fit everyone to.
Yeah, so you referenced hundreds of partners. Do you want to just talk a little bit about traction to date and the growth of Side as a platform?
Yeah, so we're about almost 3.5 years old. So we're not too, we haven't been around too long, but we've managed to do a lot in a short period of time. And that's just a credit to the agents who we've partnered with. If you were to take last year's production volume of all the agents that we currently serve, that would represent roughly $8 billion in home sales, which would make us a top 20 brokerage nationally. Now, we don't really bother to report our numbers or put them on lists because it's not about us. It's about the individual agents and teams that we support, empower, and work with. But that's considerable traction in a relatively short period of time. And maybe just to size it down a bit, San Francisco, where we started the company, which is one of the most challenging markets to start a brokerage in the world. A lot of brokerages have tried to establish themselves in San Francisco and we're not able to. Today, we represent 15% of all active listings in San Francisco. And again, credit to our partners, to those agents and those teams, because they're the ones who do that work. But that's the type of traction that we've seen so far, and it's only intensifying.
Yeah, and just to be clear for the audience, you do that by partnering with top agents, helping them bring their own brands to the market. So right. Even in San Francisco, there might be people who are interacting with Side companies and may not even be aware that actually those companies are powered by Side, because Side is really the silent partner behind.
Yeah, if you look at San Francisco, last year, the office with the highest sale price, average sales price per home, it was not Compass, it wasn't Sotheby's, it was City Real Estate. City Real Estate is owned by David Cohen. David Cohen is a Side partner. We run that back office. We produce all that marketing. We help them grow. We help them get more productive, save more time. We created that brand alongside of him and his team. But as far as the consumer, the client is concerned, they're working with City Real Estate. That's the actual brand. It's Side doing business as, but the ownership is David's. And he deserves that ownership because he's $150 million in volume a year at a $2.8 million average price point.
Yeah. So one other thing that I think is really interesting and, probably relates to several different things is that you've actually seen pretty robust continued transactions during the COVID period. Do you want to talk about that and kind of what you attribute that to?
It always comes down to the company you keep. It's taken a lot of discipline to be the only brokerage that only works with top producers, because there are so many agents who are interested in our model and our approach who we have to say no to because they've yet to prove themselves out. Yeah. So we're not really good at helping someone who does 0 deals a year get to 1. We're very good at helping someone who does 40 deals a year or 20 deals a year or 100 deals a year, double that, triple that, quadruple that over time. And those are the agents that tend to persist in times of crisis. So if you looked at the housing crisis of '08, top producers and high volume agents picked up market share. They didn't lose it during that time because all of the 1.4 million part-timers left the industry, or at least about half of them left the industry. So similar situation with this crisis. Our partner agents have outperformed the overall real estate market by 2.5 times through the crisis. The biggest part of that is that's who they are. They're resilient, creative, resourceful. They see themselves as fiduciaries to their client. They're not looking for an excuse not to do the work. They're looking for how they can get it done for them, no matter what the situation might be. And that, of course, makes a huge difference. And then Side will take a little tiny bit of credit, which is to say, as shelter in place was happening, a lot of brokerages, most brokerages couldn't even close deals with agents because they provide that service in offices, brick and mortar, with people. And all of a sudden, everybody was home and offices were closed. So how do you audit and how do you clear and how do you sign off and disperse? We didn't have that issue. Our partners were able to transition seamlessly into that new normal because we provide all that service over software through our proprietary application and platform. So they did not lose a single beat.
Yeah. So I would say, we haven't talked about it as much up until now, but I think one of the true differentiators of the Side platform is that you're really a SaaS, which means a software as a service platform. Right. And that you've built what, in my opinion, is maybe the first true end-to-end transaction management platform. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I really, I've certainly seen and engaged with that software, and it was the quality of that software that got me really excited about the company.
Yeah, we don't talk a lot about our technology because philosophically we believe that technology is at its best when it blends into the background and you can't tell it apart from what is real. So we just wanted to create magical experiences, and we put our technology behind agents, not between them and their clients. So we really truly are a silent partner in that respect. But what our product concerns itself with is reducing the amount of time an agent spends in transaction to 0, which is to say eliminating all the clerical and administrative work, menial, rote, repeatable sort of stuff that takes up half of their time, and allowing machines to do that because they do that much better, much faster. And obviously we have humans in the loop. So there's intervention and escalation. And that way you provide a much higher service level than a brokerage, an existing brokerage can in office, because you can hire people that are higher salaried, that are more capable, and you can concentrate them and then deliver their services through one uniform application. So that's served us well, it served agents well. But we really, really focus on saving them time, because a great agent is not going to be opportunity constrained. They're going to be capacity constrained. And if you can give them back time, they can do more business. They can actually increase their income. They can grow. They can get some more sleep. They can take a vacation, whatever. So that's really important in our approach to building proprietary technology. We don't build our own CRM. We're a licensed CRM, because it's better to license a CRM from a company that's invested $100 million in building something best in class than it is to hack something together that's really buggy when something great already exists and is out there. So we focus on building in the places where nobody's built before.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people in the real estate world have talked about building these types of platforms and are claiming to build these types of platforms. Mm-hmm. But give me a couple of examples of places where you think Side has actually built something that doesn't exist other places that has real value for agents.
Yeah, I'll say one thing and then I'll address the question directly, but it's really easy to market that, to say we're a technology company now, or we're tech enabled or whatever. That's in large part why we don't approach things that way. We do not say we're a technology company, even though we're more a technology company than any other company in real estate. It's not even close, because that's all what makes us special. What makes us special is that we will put an agent and a team in a position where they own a real asset in a business that's all their own, without actually having to operate a brokerage or assuming new responsibilities. Quite the opposite. It's about shifting time back to them, making them more productive, allowing them to do more business. It's about providing them with a service that helps them grow their income more predictably. Ultimately, it's about creating a community that's very exclusive and qualitative because it's all highly experienced people. Now, there are so many examples of things that we've done and built, but I'll give you maybe just the one, which is today, our partners do not have to even interface with escrow because in the transaction process, in the workflow in our application, they can like hit a button to attach. They don't have to make the phone call, write the email, all that is systems driven. Everything gets opened and then managed by our team, so they don't have to constantly be in the weeds of the transaction. So they're in control and they get to make the final decision, but they don't actually have to do all the heavy lifting and the work. And even the admins or operators on their team that they've hired to help with that get a lot of value from it because they can start focusing their time on doing things that are more valuable and more high value, not $10 an hour work, but $100 an hour work.
Awesome. So I just want to add an example of my own, which is that, in the early days of Side Growing, I had the privilege of seeing some of what you guys were building. And one thing that really stuck with me was, it's so sticky for a lot of agents when they start a new listing and they have to enter their customers' information into several different systems now. And in almost every company, this is the place. And several years ago, what got me really interested in Side, and I do want to just be clear to everyone who's watching that I was so interested in Side that last year, Guy asked me to join the board of Side, and I did.
Thank you.
So I do have something of a bias in talking to you, but I would say that bias is based on having met a lot of companies in the space and being really interested in this model and seeing it as complementary to actually companies like my own family's company. But, just the fact that people could enter that information once and then it would auto-populate in all of the different forms and all of the different systems, little things like that make such a big difference. And I think are part of what's going to differentiate Side going forward. So
conceptually, it's about capturing just the essential input from an agent and then in the first mile of a transaction of the workflow, and then using that to automate all of the additional things that they would otherwise have to do manually downstream. And that just, depending on the type of transaction, will save an agent 4 to 8 hours on every transaction because of that.
Yeah.
And that's why in part today, 30% of our partners aren't just agents and top producing teams coming out of somebody else's brokerage. They're actually similar to your family's company, to Warburg Realty, where they're independents. So in San Francisco, for example, we had the great privilege of recently partnering with Barbco, which is a San Francisco institution, independent brokerage for the last 40 years. Similarly, with Strokey Properties in Manhattan Beach or Amalfi Estates in the Pacific Palisades, and many, many more. And it's a real privilege to work with them because they don't go independent because they want to run a back office. Yeah. That's not what compels them. They go independent because they want to be in control and be able to express themselves creatively and actually own their own business, as opposed to running a business that they don't even own.
Yeah. I think, I'm getting the signal that we have to wrap, but I think that point of
already
nobody goes independent because they want to run a back office is really a nice summary of what's differentiating about Side in the market.
No top producing agent or team want to do that work either. They have to because the brokerages don't do it for them and they burden them with all of this clerical administrative work. And our perspective is you're spending half your time doing things you shouldn't. Come partner with us and let us do those things way better than you can so that you can focus on what you do best.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Guy. It's a pleasure to talk to you always.
Always nice to see you.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.